All right, welcome back. Another episode of the Goodman and Gottlieb show. And yeah, you should be dancing, Doug, because this weekend might be the best weekend in college basketball. We've got a loaded Saturday slate, 3 top 10 matchups playing each other. I'll be at one of them at Fog Allen. Sunday, another top 10 matchup. So it couldn't be slated better for heavyweight bouts this weekend. And honestly, last night, kind of led into it a little bit. You know, tonight's going to be a little bit soft, but last night, Nebraska came back from 18 down to beat a number 6 Wisconsin team in a huge effort for the Cornhuskers. The thing was, Tominaga didn't even play well, Doug. That's the best part of this win if you're Fred Hoiberg. Wiltshire was terrific. And again, the fact that they dug themselves a hole and didn't quit in this one and got a resume win for a program, for a coach that honestly we had kind of buried a year or so ago. A year ago today, really, Nebraska, it was like, Fred Hoiberg, when's he going to be fired? He came back strong last year at the end of the year, and now they've got a chance to make the NCAA tournament this year. What do you think about the job Hoiberg's done and the win last night?
I think the job he's done is outstanding. You know, it's in many ways it's similar to what he did at Iowa State, obviously doing it with a ton of transfers, and it hadn't hit until this year. But they play a 5-out style, which can be difficult. Even for Wisconsin that likes to have their big shoot on the perimeter, they're not as comfortable defending on the perimeter. So when Mass takes you out to shoot a 3, obviously C.J. Wiltshire was incredible with his. I mean, he took shots that were challenge threes. It wasn't like he was stepping into wide open ones. And, you know, if you've been following Bryce Williams' career, you know he has the talent to do this when things are going well. But look, Nebraska at home is a real team. They're a real team. They play a unique style. It's one that challenges. It's you know, one of the things that I think, you know, you look at how you beat a Purdue is you play small and you spread them out, or you play 5-out basketball. Like this is. Fred was ahead of it with many of the sets that he brought from the NBA when he was at Iowa State. And now he's, I don't want to say ahead of it, but he's mirroring some of the change in basketball with some of the 5-out stuff he's doing. You combine that with the fact that their defense was good enough. You know, to go on a 19-3 run, we concentrate on the fact that they're hitting threes, but they were getting stops as well. And like, look, if A.J. Storr isn't scoring for Wisconsin, now all of a sudden they look like the previous Wisconsin teams. They can kind of struggle to score a little bit. And so that's the issue I think the Badgers are going to have moving forward is as people in the Big Ten start to adjust, how do we guard this guy? Because he's a dynamic scoring wing. If we can limit his productivity, Wisconsin becomes a lot more beatable. Whereas I think to this point, you're still trying to figure out Wisconsin and how they play. It's a little bit different. Then you add in a guy who's really kind of a pro wing, and they're a very difficult team to cover. But Nebraska wasn't just a 3-point shooting. Let's also credit the defense, which finally started to dig in the second half, get some stops, get some rebounds, kick the ball out, play in transition that allowed them to come back, force overtime, win the game.
So the good thing for Greg Gard and the Badgers, they go back home to Madison where they're awfully difficult to beat. The bad thing, they welcome in Purdue and Zach Edey. And this is a battle for first place. Wisconsin would have signed up for this in a heartbeat if you had told them this prior to the start of the season. They're kind of playing with house money a little bit. But what this win could do, Doug, is kind of solidify the Badgers as a legitimate top 10 team and maybe a 2 seed. Because now you're putting them a little bit in the driver's seat, not driver's seat, but right there with Purdue at the upper echelon of the Big Ten. And it's a win that you kind of need because if you get blown out at home to Purdue, which could happen, probably won't, but could, on the heels of this loss, how you lost to Nebraska, then you kind of worry about their psyche a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. But I mean, they started out slow this year anyway, so I don't know if we're really that concerned about their psyche. It wasn't that affected when, you know, they lost to Providence and to Tennessee in back-to-back games to start the year. I don't think they're a top 2 seed unless they beat Purdue this week and then either beat them again on the road senior night, not likely to happen, or they got to win the Big Ten. They got to win the Big Ten tournament. And you're like, wow, that's a big hill to climb considering there's so many games left. Okay, but of their games they have left, they play Illinois at home, and no one else they play is guaranteed to be the NCAA tournament. Like they're going to win a lot of games the rest of the season.
They
but
should.
Any loss, why wouldn't they?
They should.
They don't.
Well,
they don't.
Again, it's not like they're so much more talented, Doug, than some of these other Big Ten teams they're playing against. That's why we pick Wisconsin preseason. Most people towards the middle of the league. Now, what A.J. Storr has done, he's given them a different dimension, and they're older, they're cohesive, they've played together. All right, let's get on to the other big boy match.
Well, let me just finish real quick, okay? So here's what's important. Like you pointed out, they're going to accrue. They're going to have 23, 24 wins. They're going to have a lot of wins, but they don't matter because those aren't high enough in the net, right? To quad one wins to really help them. Yep. They're only losses that can hurt them if they lose, like the Penn State loss they had from earlier this year. I think Wisconsin wins on Saturday. I do. But I think there'll be a loss or two along that path of the Purdue game. And I think the preseason will come back. But they're a dangerous team, despite the loss last night, because they have all the regular makings of Wisconsin team. Then they have a dude that can go get them 28 when the house is on fire.
All right, let's set up Saturday. Probably, again, the best day of action all year. Look at this. I mean, look at this. It starts with Houston, Kansas, 3 o'clock Central Time. Then you got the matchup, Duke, Carolina. Look at that, 7 versus 3. Tennessee plays at Rupp, 5 versus 10. And then we just talked about Purdue, Wisconsin. All right, let's start with the rivalry game. Because I think, again, this is the one, to me, that supersedes everything else in the sport, even Louisville, Kentucky, because these guys play twice a year. They're miles apart. They hate each other. It's a completely different crowd at the Dean Dome than it is at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And right now, these two teams, I can't remember a matchup, Doug. It's been a while since we were like, they're kind of even right now. Like, I don't know if you had them play a 7-game series today, like you don't know who would win this one because Duke is coming and Carolina's been absolutely terrific. They stubbed their toe a little bit at Georgia Tech, but they've been unbelievable. What do you expect in this game in Chapel Hill?
I think, it's going to be fascinating because the two teams are going to play the opposite, slightly opposite of what you would normally think of a Duke and a Carolina, traditionally best transition program in the country. This team can play in transition, but they are a tough-minded, defensive-oriented team that they'll just kind of play to whatever the pace of the game is. Whereas Duke, I think they want to push it a little bit more. They want to run those sets. I think they're going to try and exploit some mismatches on the defensive end, but they play, I think, a little bit more free offensively, a little bit more up and down than Carolina does. I think it'll be a great game, tremendous game, and
what's the key, Doug? What's the key in this game? If I said one thing that is going to determine the winner of this game, in your opinion, what is it?
I think the Ingram-Filipowski matchup. I really do. You look at when Duke lost earlier this year to Arkansas. What happened? Kyle Filipowski was in foul trouble the whole first half. It just kind of limits them. So I obviously, and this is Ingram comes in, and did they bring him in because he can shoot at the 4? Yeah, but they brought him in also because he's a very good defensive player. And so I think, they're obviously going to try and run some actions to get a Baycott guarding him. They'll play him some at the 5 to get Baycott on him, who's not a great perimeter defender, doesn't move that well, much better around the rim. But I think how Carolina defends Kyle Filipowski, I think he's top of the scouting report. That's the most important part of this game.
I know we've talked about Baycott's struggles lately offensively, and he's not normally a guy you can throw the ball down to. But do you try that against Filipowski and Ryan Young?
Yes.
Because, again, you want to get Filipowski. To me, he's going to be on Baycott defensively. Try to get him in foul trouble. And if you can post him, Baycott is bigger, stronger, not longer, but bigger, stronger. And without Filipowski in the lineup, it's a totally different Duke team. If you're Hubert Davis, quickly, are you going that route at all?
A little bit. When Flip is at the 5, I think you have to. I think you have to. But again, this is where it comes from, not just from your sideline, but you have to have your 4-year senior All-American at center. He's got to realize when he's got Ryan Young on him, you're not going to try and score on him in the post. That's when you face up and you try and use your quickness. When you have Filipowski on, it's not that he's a bad post player. He's just not the body of a Ryan Young. That's when you want to kind of go to the old school, try and wedge in, score with angles, draw a foul as well. Look, he's not a huge focal point of what they do offensively like he was last year when they tried to play more inside out, but he's still important, and he's played in these games, and he's won these games. So I do think that that's how you have to approach it on some level, right? Like the great thing about Carolina is they can run some actions, get Cormac Ryan going. You're going to want to get Ingram going. Obviously, you have a guard who can go get you buckets, right? You want to run some ball screen actions for him, try and get some double gap drives for him as well. But I do think that using Baycott as a weapon to potentially get Filipowski in foul trouble is, especially when you're playing at home, should be at least a portion of their game plan.
All right, the game I'm heading to and leaving right after this show is Houston at Kansas. First Big 12 meeting between the two teams, two absolute powerhouses with two of the best coaches in the country, in Kelvin Sampson and Bill Self. And how about this stat? You're going to love this one. Bill Self is 13-0 in top 10 matchups at Allen Fieldhouse when KU is the lower-ranked team. I mean, that's incredible. And they're probably going to be – they might be getting points. The line hasn't come out yet. Kansas could be getting points at Allen Fieldhouse where, again, Bill Self's won like 96% of his games. We know Kansas is vulnerable. We know they're not deep. Houston's deeper, but they come into a hostile environment that those guys have probably never seen before because they've been playing in the American, a lot of those players, the veterans. Now, they've seen it in the NCAA tournament with Jamal Shedd. I understand that part of it. But, again, going to Allen Fieldhouse is a different animal. Can Houston go in there? Not can, because I hate asking you to can. Will Houston go in? I'm revising. Will Houston go in and beat Kansas at the toughest place to play in college basketball?
I don't think they will. I don't. Now, Jamal Shedd the other night against Texas was just outstanding, and it's kind of something you and I have been talking about, whether it's Field 68 or here in Goodman versus Gottlieb, or just when we text each other. It's like he has that in him more, but he kind of similar to DeJuan on the other side, he'll do whatever it takes to win the game. And in the case of the game against Texas, they were face guarding LJ Cryer, not letting him get going. So he had to take over, and he had 28. I mean, obviously, point guard is going to be gigantic, and I think he has a much greater ability to score, even if he doesn't do it as much as he should. My issue is they're so physical defensively, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. It's a real thing. Like Kansas it's gonna be a march to the free throw line. It just is. Yeah. Now they have some length inside. They have dogs. I love Houston, okay, but I don't love it in this matchup. The only time that I think, okay, maybe I could be wrong, is I called the Kentucky-Kansas game 2 years ago. That was a blowout, by the way. I mean, it was over at the half. Blowout. Yeah. And I was like, man, no way. KU's going to be – and they win the national championship, right? So
you never know.
Is there a world there where Houston makes them play catch-up and Kansas just doesn't have the dudes? Yeah, they don't have – they have 2 points combined off their bench. Coming into the game against Oklahoma State, they had 2 points in the last two games. Like, they have no scoring off the bench at all. They have Furphy going some. No scoring at all. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if Houston can get a lead early. But I feel like their physical style is bound to be foul trouble city, and Kansas marches to the free throw line.
I'm very curious to see how Johnny Furphy handles the physical play of the Houston Cougars. He's been great over the last 4 games. Great. But again, defensively, he's kind of a liability. We know that. He's got to get on the glass and at least fight. And can he stay on the court for 30 minutes against a Houston team that, man, they embrace physical, tough, hard-nosed play. All right, Still to come, Goodman versus Gottlieb. It's bourbon versus whiskey as Kentucky and Tennessee get ready to square up on Saturday night. Another huge game. Both teams coming up losses. Who gets back on track in the SEC? We discuss next. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb Friday afternoon, and we've gone through a few of the big boy matchups. We got one more to go for heavyweights, and then we'll get to the welterweight matchups after that. Heavyweight matchup, Tennessee at Kentucky. Both teams coming off losses here, Doug. Kentucky was without DJ Wagner. Justin Edwards in the last game. They're questionable for this one. How much do the Wildcats need those two to be able to win this? Because they just lost to Florida at Rupp. So they've proven they're vulnerable even at home without those two players.
They need them. Everybody needs the depth of guys, and they're both talented players. I mean, they scored 90 some odd points, so it wasn't like their offense was really struggling. So, but it does get guys to buy in more defensively when you have a deeper bench. I mean, I do think this comes down in many ways to guard play, right? I mean, Ziegler was bad when Tennessee lost. He just was not good. And now he's got a challenge. Now he's got whoever he guards from Kentucky, they can give you 20. So I think that's where this kind of game starts and ends.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, Dalton Connect's going to be interesting in this one. Can he get going at Rupp? If he doesn't, they're going to have to win a grinder again. And I don't think you can hold Kentucky. Like, Kentucky's going to score their 80. Now, can you keep up? Can you score 80 if you're Tennessee? Like you said, Ziegler's got to step up. Adu's got to, like, they need other dudes. They can't just rely on Dalton Connect to go for 30 and carry them. They need other guys. You know, Josiah James has got to be better. Like, they've all got to get like 8 and 10 because they got a bunch of other solid dudes. Vescovi, like, they just can't stand around and watch Dalton Connect always go to work because Kentucky's got too many weapons, Doug. That's my at home. I think Kentucky rebounds in this one, and I think they win. And I think they win by they cover. Whatever the spread's going to be, I think they cover. I think they win convincingly. Whatever it is. Whatever
Whatever the spread is, they cover?
Well, I mean, it's not going to be that high. What's it going to be? 4 points?
Let's see here. I don't have one as of this moment, but
I bet it's 4.
Yeah, I understand, but just picking out a random a game and not knowing the spread and say they're going to cover.
Well, it's not going to be 20. I mean, come on. Like, we know
what
it's
if
going
it's
to be
7?
A handful of points.
What if it's 7?
I'll take Kentucky. I'll take Kentucky.
I would not take Kentucky if it's 7. Yeah.
The highest I'll go is 8. How's that? I'll go all the way up to 8, and I think Kentucky covers this one. Who are you taking?
Well, do I get 8 points? If I take 8 points, I will take Tennessee gladly. Feel free. No. You guys heard that, right? He just said 8 is his number. So I'll take Tennessee plus 8. Done. Kentucky for the money line. Tennessee plus 8.
All right, that's fair. All right, let's do some quick hitters because there's some other, like I said, you know, what's under heavyweight? Is that light heavyweight, then welterweight? What do we go to? Then middleweight?
Middleweight, then welterweight, I think.
All right, we're going to call these middleweight bouts. This is like Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns.
We got it. You're stalling, wasting time. We got way too many games for us to break down the different boxing levels.
But
and weight
it's like
classes.
a boxing match. I'm setting up the Dan Hurley, Rick Pitino battle. Now, that would not be a fair fight, but it is on the basketball court because these guys don't like each other right now. Pitino knows how to push Hurley's buttons. Hurley goes in with a UConn team that's number 1 in the country. Klingon looks healthy. Stephen Castle came off his best game as a pro, as a college player so far. 20 points. He was terrific. St. John's needs this one, Doug. They need it. If they get this one against UConn, I think everybody's going to be talking about the Johnnies.
They're not beating UConn in the Garden. They're not beating UConn because, like, look, if it was at Carnesecca or if it was anybody other than UConn playing in the Garden on a Saturday, packed house, I could see it. But, like, that's UConn's home away from home, right? It's their home away from home, right? They win in Hartford, they win in Stores, and they're going to win in the Garden. I like the Huskies. Okay, let me ask you about one here. Okay. Utah State, San Diego State. Utah State. So Utah State, we look at Boise, they just go beat New Mexico at New Mexico. Max Rice, who I did a pod with, awesome. 35 points on the road for that win. Yeah. But this is coming off an overtime loss at home to Utah State, the surprise of the Mountain West. But now they're taking on the big boys of the Mountain West in San Diego State. Like the Aggies, you like the Aztecs?
No, I don't. I rarely go against the Aztecs at VA House. And they need this one. They've kind of gone under the radar this year. Haven't been quite as good as we thought they'd be. Point guard play is still a little bit questionable. But, again, Utah State comes in with swagger. And if they win this one, Doug, man, I think, again, like a lot of people would be talking about the Aggies. And I can't wait. I'm going to go out there and see them for the first time at their place. In a few weeks. Never been, so I can't wait. All right, next one
the D. Glenn Spectrum Event Center.
Spectrum.
Or just the Spectrum. Okay? They have all the colors in the seats. Unbelievable fans. You'll like Logan. I'll tell me when you're going. I'll have you take care. You get the royal treatment.
All right. I like it. All right. I'm going to hit you with one, and it's two teams that have gone under the radar this year in the WCC because both struggled. Usually we talk about St. Mary's Gonzaga. It could be the heavyweight matchup tomorrow. Instead, it's fallen a little bit. Are you a believer in either one of them in terms of doing anything in the NCAA tournament if they get there? And this one's in Spokane. Can St. Mary's go in? They're hot. Can they go in and steal one?
Yes, St. Mary's can go in and steal one. They've kind of figured themselves out a little bit here, and I actually think both the teams have a chance if they can get to the NCAA tournament to win a game or maybe two. But I think St. Mary's, because what people don't know is everyone kind of got caught up in the same thing with St. Mary's, in that they felt like this was a year where Aiden Mahaney was just going to blow up, average 25 a game, and they didn't realize that one, his body's not there physically yet, and two, they have other weapons. Augustus Marcellonis is finally kind of putting it together.
Finally,
much more athletic guard. So I like St. Mary's to steal a win at the Kennel. Great game as always.
All right, your last game. Give me one more.
Okay. Iowa State Baylor. Go.
Yeah, it's a big one. Big one for the Bears. Bears have struggled. Iowa State kind of plays, into kind of what Baylor does really well, right? They shoot the ball from three very well. They're high octane. TJ Otzelberger want to slow it down, grind it out. I'm going with the Bears in this one.
I'm going to take Baylor as well. This is probably the biggest game in the new arena that the men have had. And we'll see if they can get some of the reason this thing was 7,500 seats is to create an atmosphere like we'll see on Saturday. I like the Bears to win a close game against Iowa State.
All right, one more quick one. Auburn at Ole Miss. Bruce Pearl, Chris Beard. Great matchup. Great guys who, again, have been through some stuff, but we both like because they can coach their butts off. Can Bruce Pearl and Auburn go in and steal one at Oxford? Quick.
I got Auburn pulling off what'll be a road upset. I think they'll be an underdog considering how well Ole Miss played at home. I got Auburn winning the game.
Man, I can't wait. Saturday, the biggest day in college basketball. There's no football. Watch and then come back Monday.
You didn't make a pick.